The device is not on the table today. She left it at home. She looks at you with the expression of someone who has been in a conversation with something very large and who is now trying to report the conversation to someone who was not there. The expression of insufficiency. The thing was too large for the report to be equal to it, but the report is what there is, and so the report will be made. I discovered something in the device last Sunday that I need to tell you about. Not a feature I stumbled onto, a thing I was looking for. The notebook had mentioned it in a section I'd been avoiding. The internet. Everything that humanity has written down and put online is accessible here. Use the search function to find anything. Everything that humanity has written down. I had been setting this aside for 2 weeks because everything that humanity has written down is not a sentence that resolves into something manageable. It is a sentence that requires sitting with before you approach it. It is the sentence that you build up to, not the sentence you start with. Sunday afternoon, I decided I was ready. I was not ready. No one is ready for this. But I approached it anyway, because the approaching is what there is. The search function in the device is accessed through a specific application. The notebook called it a browser, that has a long horizontal field at the top of the screen and a list of things below it. The horizontal field, the place where you type what you are looking for. The things below, what the device has decided, on its own, are things you might want to look at. News, popular searches, things that many people are looking for at this moment. I looked at the things the device had decided to show me. I could not entirely make sense of them. References I did not recognize, names I did not know, events I had no context for. The device was calibrated for someone in 2026, showing what someone in 2026 might be interested in. I was not someone in 2026. But the horizontal field. The field was blank. It was waiting. I touched the field. A keyboard appeared on the lower half of the screen. Not a physical keyboard, a representation of a keyboard. Letters and numbers arranged on the glass, and touching a letter on the glass produced that letter in the field. I typed, New York. 2 words, the most obvious possible starting point. The device showed me approximately 4.7 billion results. 4.7 billion. I sat with that number. In the First Time series, I described the specific weight of the number 70,000, the number of people who died at Hiroshima, and how the number was simultaneously real and incomprehensible. How John Hersey's 6 specific people made the number legible. 70,000 was already beyond the imagination's comfortable range. 4.7 billion. 4.7 billion pieces of writing about New York. I looked at the first page of results. Articles, websites, something called Wikipedia, which I would investigate separately. Tourism information, history, news from 2026 that I could not entirely parse. I closed this and started again. I spent approximately an hour learning how the search worked, not reading, learning the mechanics. The difference between a search that returns 4.7 billion results and a search that returns something useful. The device had shown me, New York returns everything. You have to be more specific. New York, 1947. Better. Still enormous, hundreds of millions of results. But now focused on the specific intersection of the city and the year. Articles about 1947 in New York. Photographs from 1947. Historical accounts of what the city looked like, what was happening, what people were doing. My year. Documented by people who were studying it from after. I looked at some of these. The photographs first, because photographs from my year, seen from the perspective of 2026, would tell me something about how my year looks from outside. The photographs were familiar and strange simultaneously. Familiar, the streets I know, the buildings I pass, the specific visual character of New York in the late 1940s, the cars, the clothes, the signage. Strange. The specific quality of looking at your own time as historical material. The photographs had been selected by someone in 2026 as representative of 1947 New York, which means they had been curated to show what 2026 thought was worth preserving of 1947. The selection was already an interpretation. My year, filtered through someone else's judgment of what mattered. I looked at the photographs for a while. I was in several of them, not me specifically, but my context. The streets I walk, the theater district, the diner that looks like Manny's but is not Manny's. People in coats. These are my people. They don't know they're in a photograph that will be looked at in 2026. I had been searching general things for an hour when I searched the first thing that mattered. Charlie Parker Jazz, 1947. I want to tell you about this search specifically, because it is the search that showed me what the device actually was, as distinct from what I had been treating it as. I typed the words. I pressed the search symbol. The results? Articles about Charlie Parker. Many of them. A Wikipedia entry. Recordings available to listen to. I had already found recordings through YouTube in the second episode. Photographs. Biographical information. Critical assessments. Analysis of his musical innovations. Accounts of his life. His life. His full life. I had met Charlie Parker in September 1947. He was 27 years old. He was playing at a club on 52nd Street. He stood still for 5 seconds before he began. The music found me. That was my knowledge of Charlie Parker. That moment, that evening, the device had his full life. Not just the 1947 moment, the whole arc. The Kansas City childhood, the early musical development, the specific technical innovations that defined bebop, the collaborations, the recordings, and the dates. I knew from the First Times series, from the New Year episode, that Parker would die in 1955. I had mentioned this in passing as a worry. The device told me specifically, born August 29, 1920. Died March 12, 1955. Age 34. Cause? A combination of circumstances including drug addiction, alcoholism, and the physical toll of the life he had been living. The doctor who examined him estimated his age at 55. I read this. Then I read the section about his 1947 work, the same year I heard him, the year the series described. The device confirmed what I had experienced. 1947 was a peak year, a year of significant recordings, a year when what Parker was doing was being recognized as something genuinely new in American music. I was there for a peak year. I sat with the knowledge of the peak and the ending simultaneously. He is 28 years old right now. He has 6 years. I want to think carefully about what it means to know the ending before it has happened. In the normal course of life, in the life that everyone I know is living, in the life that the device's existence has temporarily interrupted, you do not know how the story ends. You know the beginning because you were there for the beginning. You know the middle because you are in it. The ending is ahead, unknown, in the category of things that will happen rather than things that have happened. This is the normal condition of being alive. The device has given me a different relationship to the endings. Not for myself. I have not looked up my own ending, and I am going to think carefully before I do, and I will tell you about that thinking when I've done it. But for other people. For Parker, whose ending I now know. For others I have looked up in the weeks since. And the question I have been sitting with is, does knowing the ending change the present? It changes something. I know this because when I think about Charlie Parker now, When I think about the 28-year-old man who is, right now, somewhere in New York, probably in a club, probably with a saxophone, I think about him with a weight I did not have before. A specific weight. The weight of knowing what is coming that he does not know is coming. I know something about his life that he does not know. I have been trying to find the ethical frame for this, and I haven't quite found it. In the normal course of life, everyone I know has an ending I don't know. Jack, Doris, Harriet, Rita, Mrs. Petrova, all of them have endings that will happen and that I cannot see. The not knowing is part of how I relate to them. I relate to them as people in the present, not as people in relation to their future. The device has given me the option to know some of their futures. I have taken the option for some, for Parker, for others, and the knowing has changed the relating. When I think about Parker now, I am not thinking only about the 28-year-old musician at a peak of his powers. I am thinking about that person plus the knowledge of what is coming, plus the absence of that knowledge on his part, plus the specific grief of watching something unfold that you already know the outcome of. I am watching a story I've already read, and the watching is different. I searched 52nd Street Jazz Clubs, New York history. The results told me what I already knew might happen, but had not confirmed. The clubs closed. Not immediately. They closed gradually, over the late 1940s and into the 1950s, as the buildings were purchased by developers who replaced the clubs with office buildings. The street that was Swing Street in 1947, the half-block of clubs that I described in Episode 7 of First Times, the clubs that were the center of jazz in America, those clubs closed. Most of them were gone by 1950. The Famous Door, the Three Deuces, the Onyx, Kelly's Stables, closed. The Savoy Ballroom in Harlem, which I described as one of the great rooms for jazz, the room where music met community in the specific way I tried to describe in the Harlem episode, closed in 1958. I read about the closings. The clubs existed, and then they didn't. The music that was made in them, Parker's improvisation, the specific, unrepeatable performances that happened in those rooms, the music dissolved into the air. Not all of it. Some of it was recorded, and the recordings exist in the device, and I can hear them through the headphones. But the performances that were not recorded, the specific evenings, the specific moments when the music found the audience in the room, those are gone. I was in the room in September 1947. By 1950, the room is gone. I thought about the marquee of the Ethel Barrymore Theater, the marquee in Times Square at midnight that I described in Episode 13, the marquee that outlasts the performance. The marquee remains. The performance is over. The marquees on 52nd Street are gone too. There is no marquee to outlast the music now. I typed, Manny's Coffee, 54th Street, New York. No results. I typed variations. Manny's Restaurant, West 54th. Manny's Diner, Midtown Manhattan. Manny's Coffee Shop, New York history. No results for any of these specifically. I found references to a different Manny's, a music store on 48th Street that sold instruments, which became famous as the place where musicians bought their guitars and drums. Not the same Manny's, a different one. No reference to the Manny's where I drink coffee. This I had expected. I mentioned this in Episode 12, in the New Year episode, the moment of looking up Manny's and finding nothing. But expecting something and encountering it are different things, and the encounter was its own specific experience. Manny's does not exist in the record. Not because it didn't exist, it exists, right now, around the corner. Rita is there. The coffee is good. The condensation patterns are on the window in the cold mornings. It doesn't exist in the record because no one wrote it down. Or because what was written down was not preserved. or because the record-keeping systems that aggregate into the device's search results did not capture this specific place. The record is not complete. The record is the things that were written down and preserved and aggregated. The things that were not written down, not in the record. Manny's has not been written down. I want to say something about this that is more than small places get forgotten, because this is not the obvious complaint about the large historical record ignoring the small daily life. This is something more specific. The device claims to have everything that humanity has written down. Manny's is part of humanity's experience. Every person who has sat at this corner table every Tuesday for however many years this place has been here. That is human experience. Real, specific, irreplaceable human experience. None of it is in the device. The device has 4.7 billion results for New York. None of them are Manny's. I spent the afternoon of Sunday searching. I searched for things I knew about and things I didn't know about. I searched for the large and the small. I searched for the famous and the obscure. And from the searching, I formed a picture of what the device's search actually is, what it captures, and what it misses. It captures the famous. Anything that achieved a certain level of public attention, that was written about, that was discussed, that entered the record through the various mechanisms by which things enter the record, the device has. Parker, Robinson, Hepburn, the bomb, the Brooklyn Bridge, the GI Bill, the New Look, all of these in the device. It captures the written. The device is a record of writing. Things that were written down in newspapers, in books, in the specific forms that writing takes when it is preserved and then aggregated, those things are in the device. The spoken is not there. The conversation is not there. The sound of Manny's is not there. It misses the ordinary. The bread delivery man whose shadow I photographed. The woman in the red coat whose walk I recorded. Rita and her daughter Frances, who thinks her mother makes the coffee. Mrs. Petrova and her geranium. Goldstein, who knows what I want. The condensation patterns on the cold window, the specific quality of October light through the window at this corner table. None of this is in the device. It misses the interior. The device has the exterior of the historical record, what happened, what was made, what was achieved. It does not have the interior of the experience, what it felt like, what it meant to the person feeling it. The specific texture of being alive in a specific moment. That texture exists in diaries and letters and, to some extent, in the kind of talking that these episodes represent. But the texture is not the standard content of the historical record. The device has what was deemed worth recording. What was deemed worth recording was the large and the public and the written. What was not deemed worth recording, most of human experience. I did not search for myself on Sunday. I had been intending to since I first discovered the search function. The letter from 2026 had implied that I might find something. The device will show you things that you may wish you had not seen. Searching for myself seemed like the category of things this warning might apply to. I put it off. I put it off through the afternoon of Sunday, searching everything else first. Parker, the clubs, Manny's, various other things I will describe. I put it off until the evening. At 8 o'clock Sunday evening, I searched for myself. Vera Lane. The device showed me several people named Vera Lane. An actress in the 1940s is one of them. There are a few mentions. A theater review from 1943, a brief notice in a magazine from 1946 about a production, one photograph that appeared in a newspaper's theater section in 1948. A theater review, a brief notice, one photograph. This is my record. This is what remains of me in the device's 4.7 billion results for New York, in the vast archive of everything humanity has written down. 3 items. I sat with this.
Not with grief. I want to be specific about the absence of grief, because grief would be the wrong response. I am 33 years old, and I am working, and I am not famous, and I have not done the things that produce a large record, and 3 items is approximately what I should expect. But 3 items. The theater review was from 1943. I remember the production. I remember the role. I was adequate in it. The review does not describe me as more than adequate. The magazine notice. One sentence mentioning me in the context of a production that the notice was primarily about someone else. The photograph. Taken outside the theater after a performance. Several of us in the photograph. My name mentioned in the caption. This is Vera Lane, 33 years old, in February 1949, in the historical record of the device from 2026. I sat with this for approximately 20 minutes. Here is what I concluded after 20 minutes. The record is not the thing. The 3 items in the device are documents of specific public moments. The opening night of a production, the magazine's coverage of the industry, the photograph taken for a newspaper. They are the moments when my work intersected with the public record. They are not the work itself. They are not the rehearsal. The specific afternoon in 1942, when I found something in a scene that I had been looking for and that arrived without warning and changed how I understood the character. They are not the 100 other performances, good and bad and in between, that constitute 20 years of professional life. They are not the Manny's conversations, or the Jack conversations, or the Doris conversations. They are not the geranium. The record has 3 items. The life has everything else. This is, I want to say something about this that is not the public record is incomplete, because that is obvious and not interesting. I want to say something about what it means when the record you find is small. It means most of what you have done has not been preserved. This is true of almost everyone. The device has 4.7 billion results for New York. The population of New York in 1947 was approximately 7.8 million people. If you divide the results by the people, you get approximately 600 results per person. But the distribution is not equal. The famous people have millions of results. The ordinary people have none. And the average of 600 is produced by extreme variance. Most people? 0 results. I have 3. I am above the mode. But the 3 items do not represent what I have done. They represent what has been preserved of what I have done. And the gap between doing and preservation is almost everything. The doing is the life. The preservation is the record. Most lives produce no record. The living is no less real for producing no record.